But speaking of the neighborhood, I got a question because there was a time when you would walk around and we live at the end of a cul-de-sac where it's like a loop cul-de-sac. You got to come into the end of the neighborhood and then there's a little loop that you go around and you can only come in and go out the same way. So it's like a little, I don't know, a little round street that's about a half a mile. But there was a time that you would go walking on that street and there were lots of homes that were for sale. And so whenever we would go walking, of course, my husband's always pulling out the little sheet to find out how much are they asking for their house or whatever. And there was a house in our neighborhood that just went up for about twice what it's worth. And his ears perked up. He's like, "Oh, the homes are worth more money." And I was like, "No, no, no, this is a fool's game." And we were trying to figure out what kind of a strategy that was. Does it make sense to list a house for twice the value so that when you come back down on the price, people are like, "Whoa, I got a heck of a deal." Or is that just a fool's game?
I am so glad you brought this up. I run into this every day on the listing side. So when you're talking about listing a home in any given market, a lot is going to have to do with the current market conditions. And there's really three pricing strategies that we use. And to keep it simple, we can call them high, medium, and low. If you go low on your pricing strategy, you usually end up with a lot of competition right out of the gate, usually end up with multiple offers and overbidding for the house. But when I say low, you're not going too far below the comparables for the neighborhood that it wouldn't make sense that you would still net out a profit. Now, this only works if you've been in the house for a prolonged period of time, because you still have to net enough out to cover all of your expenses on the house. So the longer you're in the house, the easier that strategy works. The mid-range strategy is the strategy where you're pricing it pretty similar to other homes that are fairly comparable on the market. And those will usually sell in the average time frame for your neighborhood. And so let's call that maybe 30 days. You're looking at maybe a 30-day turnaround time, but we're also working with you to find your next home. And we have to marry the timeline between your current home and your next home so that you're not carrying two mortgages, right? And so if we're looking at possibly a 30-day to get under contract and a 30-day close, we're looking at a 60-day window with that pricing strategy. And, during that time, we're out looking for another home. We've got to get that under contract and we've got to get those closing dates to match up so that you're not moving twice. You're not moving your stuff out into storage and then back into a new house, all those kinds of things. Or there's the scenario where we price it high. You want a lot out of the home. You think your home is worth X and you can wait. You don't care if it's 6 months from now. It can sit on the market as long as you want. And in that scenario, and we do run into those where somebody's retired, it doesn't matter. Once their home goes under contract, then they're willing to go pull the trigger on another home. We can price that home high and it can sit there for 6 months and, everybody's okay with that. So those are kind of the three basic strategies. And that's going to really depend on how long you've been in the home, how quickly you need to move. And then of course, just what you're wanting as far as that time frame goes. So it's easy to work around. And then is it in a buyer's or seller's market also depends on the pricing. And we can get way into pricing as far as what Zestimates are versus what our comparables are and how comparables are done. But trying to guess your home's value as an owner is definitely a fool's game. There'll be no way you can price it. And based on Joe's house down this, again, it's comparing apples to oranges. Even if his home is in a similar neighborhood, is it the same square footage, same bedroom size, same amenities and upgrades? Was the house built in the same year or was it years apart? There's a lot that plays into that. And so a lot of us hear, oh, our neighbor sold their house. They sold it for way over budget. They sold it really quickly and maybe we could sell ours for just as much.
And that's where we are. He's got this weird shiny object syndrome. Like, yeah, we can sell the house. And I'm like, please, I don't want to move. I like the house I'm in.
Yeah. So definitely getting with a realtor to determine those factors for you and get the right pricing strategy based on your long-term strategy. And again, this is where you start to get personal about your life. Here's what's going on with my finances and here's how soon we want to move. And here's how much we have in savings. And here's what we want to use for a down payment. And if we're going to get an investment property, this is, on and on. And so lots of factors that play into that.